And it's the morning after Prime Minister Boris Johnson announced a conditional plan to begin lifting England's coronavirus lockdown. Let's see how the markets are digesting the plans. Juliana will bring us up to speed with that. Good afternoon, Juliana. Well, it's intraday. How are the markets digesting Boris Johnson's plans to ease lockdown?
Good afternoon, Chimise. Well, the FTSE actually opened up in a positive note this morning, despite the headlines from the media saying everybody's totally confused by Boris Johnson's speech yesterday evening. But it has dipped at intraday, and I believe that's because there are new figures coming out of Germany and South Korea that show that the coronavirus cases there are increasing. South Korea has famously been highlighted for being, of course, one of the best places in the world to combat the coronavirus. And certainly in Europe, Germany has been heralded as the place to be. But this R number, R being the rate of infection, how many people one individual can infect with the coronavirus, has increased in Germany, and that's really spooking investors here because, of course, we're expecting our lockdown to be lifted soon. So at intraday, the FTSE All Share is down 0.17%. The FTSE 100 is down 0.24%, and the FTSE 250, the domestic market, is up by 0.10%. In currencies, the pound is also down on the dollar by 0.75%, down on the euro by 0.55%, and down on the Japanese yen by 0.13%. It's worth saying that travel and tourism stocks are the big fallers on the FTSE today. IAG, the international owner of British Airways, their shares are down 3.6%. TUI, however, the package tour operator, their shares are up 1.4% as they just published to shareholders how they plan to get their package tour customers into destinations safely. That seemed to really cheer up the shareholders there. And BP and Royal Dutch Shell, they're also down because, of course, the June stock for Brent crude is still wavering and they're not happy with that.
And talking about plans to ease the lockdown, Northern Ireland plans to publish a plan to slowly get out of the lockdown. Why is Northern Ireland taking a different approach after the Prime Minister had spoken?
Well, all four nations of the United Kingdom are taking their own approach because they are devolved governments. Yes, the Prime Minister does lead the United Kingdom. However, Northern Ireland, Wales and Scotland they have first ministers that are in charge of their own country. Arlene Foster, she is the First Minister of Northern Ireland. She's expecting to lay out her roadmap tomorrow. There are already suggestions that the lockdown measures that she has in place will remain the same. We're expecting in England that some schools will open, primary schools, so for pupils who are between the age of 4 and 10 will open at the end of this month. It's not expected to do that in Northern Ireland until the beginning of September, and there are other measures that she will keep in place, as we've seen in Wales and Scotland. I think the biggest tension at the moment is clearly between England and Scotland. Nicola Sturgeon, the First Minister, has been really vocal in dismissing all of the remarks that were given by Prime Minister Boris Johnson yesterday. Of course, there's already been tension between Prime Minister Boris Johnson and Nicola Sturgeon and Scottish nationalists that already want to, sever ties with Britain. They want to be their own country. They already have their referendum and they're calling to have another referendum. So of all the other nations, I would say Nicola Sturgeon in Scotland has been the most vocal, and she believes that Boris Johnson has completely, gone back on the progress that United Kingdom could be taking in tackling the coronavirus. And she has urged people, and she did just now, about an hour ago when she finished her daily briefing, to stay at home rather than stay alert, which is the big difference in the government slogans that they've asked the public to adhere to yesterday.
And Brexit talks have resumed ahead of June summit. Where is UK and the EU in this? Will there be a headway eventually, despite the COVID-19 pandemic?
Well, yes, the third round of Brexit negotiations have started. On the British side, it's being chaired by David Frost. On the European side, it's being chaired by Michel Barnier, and the Downing Street are pretty clear. They are not extending the Brexit transition period, which will end at the end of this year. It's definitely ruffled some feathers, and there is tension between the two sides. Michel Barnier has been pretty clear that he believes Britain have deliberately tried to postpone talks. Of course, at the moment, all of the discussions are being taken place via video phone calls. But he says that they've been avoiding some of these phone calls and they're dithering on some of the trade measures. Britain have been clear about not wanting to extend the transition period because they believe that the legislation that will take place because of COVID-19 is just going to be too laborious. They would rather focus on new trade deals rather than trying to be involved in any COVID-19 legislation that will not benefit the people in Britain, because even though they would still technically be within the European Union, they will only be focusing on the benefit of the 27 remaining countries, not Britain. So the discussions have been clear. I suppose what most people wanted to know is whether or not Britain, because of the grim economic status it's in at the moment, and because we are the second highest country infected by COVID-19 in the world, that perhaps they would extend the period. They won't be doing that, and they've made that pretty clear this morning.
Thank you, Juliana. Well, aside from COVID-19, we'll keep an eye on those Brexit talks. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of the day.